A compilation of major reports shows over 400 Nigerians were killed in the first 3 weeks of 2022. And the newly amended Electoral Act bill bars voters from contesting candidate certificates in court. This is Plus Politics. I am Justin Akadone. At least 486 people were killed in the first 3 weeks of 2022 by non-state actors across Nigeria, an average of 22 people a day. A compilation of major reports shows. Now, over 80% of the killings were carried out by terror groups that have terrorized the northern region. In the first week of the year, at least 216 people were killed by armed persons. The victims include the 200 killed in Zamfara, the 7 killed in Kaduna, 3 in Plateau, 3 in Akwa Ibom, and 3 in Ondo State. In the second week, at least 37 people were killed by non-state actors. The figures include 18 in Plateau, 1 in Abuja, 1 in Imo, and 17 in Kebbi State. Now, in the third week, at least 13 people were killed, 3 persons in Kaduna, 4 in Ebonyi, 1 in Akwa Ibom, and 5 in Niger State. Now, last week, the Niger State Governor, Sani Bello, announced that at least 220 people were killed in his state between January 1 and 17. Well, joining us to discuss this is Kabir Adamo, a security risk management expert, and Ife Wanao, a security analyst. Let's start with Kabir. Good evening to you, Kabir. Many thanks for joining us on Plus Politics.
Good evening, Justin. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, Kabir, let's just dive into this particular worrying issue. From what we hear, about 486 people have been killed so far in just about 22 days, in 3 weeks, in 2022. What does this really tell us? Because it is really saddening if you consider that's about an average of, 80 or 42 or 22 people, daily. What does this really tell us about the security situation, judging by the fact that the president came out sometime earlier this year on January 1 and was telling us that security is a bit under control in the country?
Unfortunately, the reality says otherwise. It says that the situation is not exactly under control. If where you have this number of persons being killed, then clearly social order, the social contract that has brought us together as a people, is no longer as tenable as it should be. Even if it were 10 persons that were being killed in a month in Nigeria, then it's still worrisome. But in this instance, we're talking of hundreds, 400. I do have my reservations regarding the sources used by this particular report. I run a consultancy, and we keep our own data of deaths. And I know that in 2021, the list that we recorded for end month was around the same 400. In fact, in June of last year, we recorded 1,032 deaths just in that month alone. Now, I don't know what methods this particular compiler of this data used, but I can tell you that the figure is almost similar to what we're also keeping using, industry standard and scientifically verified methods. Now, there are certain themes or common elements that run across all the locations where this death is being recorded. And that is the issue of non-state actors that have armed themselves and that are now challenging the supremacy of the use of force by the state, and unfortunately are successfully challenging that supremacy. So if you go to the northeast, you have terrorist groups. If you go to the northwest and north central, you have bandits or terrorist groups, depending on what you want to call them. And then if you go to the southeast and to an extent south-south, you have secessionist groups that have been challenging the authority of the state, as well as militants and sometimes gunmen who are criminally oriented. So that's the common feature really across almost all parts of the federation. And it speaks at one thing, which is the weakness of the state institutions. First off, to protect citizens and residents, and then secondly, to ensure that these non-state actors who are challenging the supremacy of the state are arrested and penalized. Unfortunately, we were not seeing enough of that. So more of these non-state actors are rising and becoming bolder to do that, and that is why we're seeing the situation. There are triggers for these issues. One of the triggers is politics. And as you probably are aware, the political season has commenced. There is a lot of political issues that are driving attention at the moment. The Ekiti and Osun state elections are being discussed. The National Convention of the ruling party is an issue. The main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, is also discussing more intensively. It's like theirs. And this is also increasing the tension as well as the potential for violence as well as the death. One issue that remains to be researched is the rise in ritual killings. My consultancy, the database that we keep, has seen that rise in ritual killings where they are harvesting body organs, and a lot of the anecdotal information suggests that rise is associated with the politics that I discussed earlier. So that's where this 486 people coming from.
Okay, fine. We'll get back to it. We'll try and analyze, the figures and statistics that, have been reeled out to us. From what we hear, about 80% of the killings were carried out by terror groups that have terrorized northwest and north central zones of Nigeria. In a minute, we'll come back to you, Kabir. But let's bring security analyst Ife Wanago into this particular, discuss. Good evening. Acts were carried out by non-state actors, and Kabir just gave us a bit of overview, and he said these terrorists, these criminals are becoming bolder by the minute. What have we failed to see as it is in stemming this issue of security in Nigeria?
Oh, okay. If I'm the president in Aso Rock, you will see that a man who is clearly helpless, and it was clear, it is an open secret that part of Niger State, just like you have parts of Borno State, are under the control of non-state actors. In other words, there is an absence of governance authority as far as the Nigeria state is concerned. And in terms of what we have failed to see or what we've done, for me, there is no end game in sight, and there is no concerted tactical approach to saying that this is how we want to go about it. It appears that terrorism and the like have been accepted as a norm now. We must now continue as a branch of Nigerian security and anti-terrorism network. There must be now and again a continuous fight, which is not fully coordinated and tailored towards a definitive end. So we have a situation where you make one inroad today, you step back, you make another inroad tomorrow, and you also allow the terrorists, the criminals, the aggressors to hold sway, and then you wait for a while, you go again. So as far as I'm concerned, what I find missing is the apparent lack of a coordinated approach with regard to having sufficient manpower, sufficient equipment, and strategy which dovetails into field tactics on the ground. Within the 1 to day 7, what do we aim to achieve with X manpower deploying from X regions? As it stands, it appears like our military, our security agencies have said that certain parts of the country cannot be effectively secured. That is the impression that I have, being from the security environment. So I wonder what the ordinary Nigerian in Niger State and elsewhere would feel. You know, we can juxtapose this with the issue that happened in Taraba the other day, when we also have people from Cameroon coming in, the Ambazonians, whatever you call them, coming to attack Nigerians and go away, and there's nothing from the Nigerian perspective. So whereas we have internal issues we are dealing with, we have terrorists that have also turned upon us, and we also have those ones that are climate induced in terms of the Sahel region and the Chad angle, the issues of climate change affecting them. So for me, it is missing on the part of the government that they have a strategy and a tactic to deliver this. Something is amiss. They need to really step up, and the citizens need to know what the plan is and what is the end game. Is this going to be the case continuously until this government, the tenure of this government is off, and then the next one will come and continue? What is the end game? It is missing.
All right, thank you, Efe, for your input. Let's bring back Kabir into this discussion. I'm sure you have heard, Efe's point of view. He seemed to note the issue of lack of coordinated approach, issues of manpower and equipment. But specifically, he was emphatic when it came to Niger State. Let's talk about that for just 1 minute. The governor, said at least 220 people were killed in his state between January 1 and 17, although most of the killings in the state were unreported until the governor's statement, meaning that the media could have missed out on the exact figure. What is happening in Niger State? Is it that the state itself or the government in Niger is a bit overwhelmed as it cannot really secure, the lives and the property of residents who reside there? Kabir.
I'd like to categorically state that the industry standard practices that we use in collating these figures does not indicate that 220 people were killed in Niger.
What's the true picture?
The figure we have is much less than that. It's about 78 persons. So even, the governor, being the chief executive and the chief security officer in the state, one cannot dispute him. What would have been really helpful when he stated that was to have indicated where these persons were killed. Because frankly, the processes that we use to collect our information includes the security agencies. And I can tell you with all sense of responsibility that even with the security agencies, the figures do not match what the governor mentioned. Again, because I'm quite experienced in the sector, sometimes there could be errors in when the statements are being made. And I'm just hoping that that's not what happened in this instance. But then, even if the figure is the 78 that I mentioned, it's very worrisome and concerning. There are about 5 local governments that have been more or less dominated by these non-state actors. And one of the major worries for me is our inability as a people to even disaggregate the name of these non-state actors. So I prefer to call them gunmen, because on the one hand, they are terrorists, just like the federal government has recently declared them. But then on the other hand, they are unknown gunmen, depending on which security agency you discuss with. Then again, depending on what arm of the media you're engaging with, they could be called, again, unknown gunmen or even gunmen unknown, if you want to be funny. So that is a major issue. Who are we dealing with, and what crime are they committing? Is it a terrorist offense or is it a criminal offense? Is it banditry? If it's banditry, how come in the 21st century, in the year 2022, we have bandits that have dominated 5 local governments? These are outlaws. So how can you have outlaws in a state that is governed and that has state institutions. Now, what are the common features that allow them to flourish in a state like Niger, in these 5 local governments that I mentioned? Number one is landmass. Niger has probably the biggest landmass in any of the states in the federation at the moment. Number two is the ungoverned spaces, the forested parts. Because of this large expanse of land, Niger, unfortunately, is disposed to that. Several forested parts, several mountainous parts that allow these non-state actors to hibernate. Number three is its proximity to crisis-prone areas such as Kaduna. And then, of course, through the ungoverned spaces that I mentioned, there is a direct sort of link through forests that traverses Zamfara, Katsina, Kaduna into Niger State, and then to an extent, even Plateau State. So a lot of the movement of these non-state actors from these locations, crisis-prone locations that I mentioned, ends up in Niger. So if there is an ongoing security force operation, like there is at the moment in the other locations like Zamfara, Katsina, what they do is they move down. Of course, there is pressure on them in Kaduna. They now move down into Niger, into these ungoverned spaces. Now, it's also very easy for one to conclude that the state government has not been able to respond adequately. Now, the argument by the state government is that security still remains in the federal, exclusive list as is aware of the Constitution. So the state governors cannot do a lot to address the issue because they can't control or dictate to the security.
So what do you suggest?
A combination, better coordination, just like FA has mentioned, between the federal and state government, and then a judicious use of the security vote. Apart from Lagos State, and perhaps, in fact, apart from Lagos State, I'm not aware that any other state has been transparent with the way it's using its security vote. What we hear is that they provide funding for foiling by these security agents. Sometimes they buy vehicles for them, but no other state government is transparent in terms of how it does that. Now, what Lagos State has done is to it has this security trust fund, which is a pool through which every individual in the state, every corporate body in the state is able to put money, and then that money is transparently used to support security organizations. Now, that is the kind of ingenious and practical steps I would like to see in states like Nigeria.
So why are other states not actually borrowing a leaf from Lagos State?
Because it's easy money. It's money that is not audited, and so they are able to use it for things that, unfortunately, I don't even want to speak about in this platform. This has been well documented. CIVLAC did a report, I remember about 2 years ago, that documented this issue of security vote and how state governments, unfortunately, and not just state governments, it cuts across both state governments, federal parastatals, name them. This is unaudited money that they use it for. So again, it's easy for the governor to mention this figure, but what is more important is he should have told us, for instance, where this figure came from, and then what he is doing, to ensure that, by February, this figure reduces to, let's say, less than 10, and then we'll be happy.
All right, thank you, Kabir. We'll come back to you. Now, Efe, I'm sure you have been following the discussion. Let's talk about another state that gives me a bit of concern. Sometime in December, on a daily basis, we heard of killings along the Abuja, Kaduna Expressway. From the reports that, was released from the compilation, there were 7 killed in the first 3 weeks here in 2022, 3 in Plateau, 3 in Akwa Ibom, and 3 in Ondo State. Would you say, since the declaration of bandits as terrorists, that the situation in that particular axis, that's Kaduna, Abuja, has actually changed for the better? Ife?
Well, I will not be making the mistake of making a hasty conclusion with regard to what the actual situation is. Because for me, and from the perspective I see it, sometimes some of these things are not reported. As you are aware, the issues in Niger State were not in the public domain until the governor cried out. So what was happening in Abuja, Kaduna route, sometimes you have a dearth of reportage as to what is going on. But even then, if we have some respite for a week, 2 weeks, or a month in a particular axis, and then Sokoto and Kaduna Inland and Zafara become issues, and by the time you think you're having some respite there, Niger is up and Borno is up. You remember what happened when the president visited Borno State and there was a rocket fire into Maiduguri from outside, and we described it as people who are fleeing or who are being defeated and what have you. So for me, I wouldn't say that the declaration of this bandit group of terrorists has achieved results for us. There is still more to be seen and to be done. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to have a proper coordination nationally. And let us not forget to mention that a few days or a few weeks ago, it was reported that the police is complaining that Nigerians are not turning up for recruitment. The first public relations officer specifically mentioned southern Nigeria, southeast. People are not coming up to be recruited into the police. I do not know what the army is seeing with regard to recruitment of fresh people. I'm talking about Niger State, digressing a little. You are aware that it has about 10% of the landmass of the entire country.
Yes, it does.
What have we done to scale up the number of security agents in the country? Military, police, paramilitary. So for me, it appears like we don't have the urgency. We have a war situation and call it a staccato of sorts. You know, it is not normal warfare. It is not synthetic warfare. So what you have here is different. It's a guerrilla kind of thing. And it's not a single group. So the country is being torn at its seams by different forces. We are supposed to be in war mode. So in terms of manpower, training, personnel, there's supposed to be an aggressive recruitment. And in some cases, without being immodest, you can see you would even conscribe. There should be conscription going on to have the requisite numbers and tie that into the weaponry that you have and you deploy appropriately. Then you can hold commanders to account. So I think that the paucity of information as to what goes on in the Abuja-Kaduna axis now is not enough for us to say that yes, because we were declared as terrorists, there is now some. Okay, see what happens. The crisis will now have from Kanu, from the little 5-year-old girl that was kidnapped. So it's not a franchise. Boko Haram is now a franchise. The banditry is not a franchise. Everybody is cashing in on criminality across the country. We are aware that even in southwest Nigeria, some criminals will go kill people and they will pretend and they will have a decoy and look like they have been asking that they need more equipment, they need more personnel. The police, the same thing. What about the DSS, the intelligence angle? What are they providing? What are they bringing to the table? Are you supporting them to deliver? Are you giving them the requisite manpower that they need? So I think the NSA must be talking more to the president. He must be the one declaring house of the efforts we have at all these issues of insecurity. And there must be an end game. I like to repeat, you don't fight an indefinite war and expect that things will just fall in place. You don't have an approach that is basically a no approach. What is your aim? You are aware, for instance, that parts of Niger State, parts of Borno State are under siege. So what are you doing? When we have election in Anambra, you were able to deploy over 30,000 policemen. So what are you doing in such places? Why are you not mopping up people, getting friendly forces, and target particular areas at the same time? Because when you face only Niger State, you have some respite, and then they are up in Kaduna, or they are up in Zamfara, or maybe they go to Kwara. So for me, the government needs to break down the shoulders of its commanders.
All right, thank you.
Beyond doing that, you must support them aggressively.
All right. Thank you. Let's just get some final words from Kabir Adamu as we wrap up on this particular discourse. If he raised some pertinent, point, you talked about, the recruitment of, Nigerian police. The Salvadors are not actually showing any interest. He also talked about ungoverned territories in the maybe some part of the northern states in Nigeria. As we wrap up this discussion now, so what should be, what should the government, that's the federal and the state's government, be doing in the interim so that, the residents can actually go to bed with both of their eyes, closed?
So, better coordination is the way to go. Each of these government levels have their own security arrangements. So at the federal level, you've got like 27 ministries, departments, and agencies. And FA has talked about the need for coordination between these 27 ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as the military units. But beyond this better coordination at the federal level, I believe there is need for enhanced coordination between the federal and state levels. There is no state government, no state that you go to in Nigeria today that does not have some form of state-level arrangement. In fact, in some states, you have different state-level arrangements. I can use the example of Zamfara State that has the Yansakai, which created the monster that we have today in terms of banditry. If you go to Borno State, they have different civilian JTF, they have hunters, unit, name them. They are all state-level units. And the reason why I'm saying this is because they are documented and they are being paid some form of stipends by the state government, but they are not captured into the security architecture. So we need better coordination between the federal and state government so that all these state-level arrangements are captured into the security architecture. Now, this is for the short term. For the long term, I think we need to start having a conversation around decentralization of security arrangements at the country so that we can have some form of state-level either policing or security arrangement that is recognized by the Constitution, not this haphazard approach that we have that, frankly, is not helping us. It's actually costing more than helping us.
All right, thank you so much. Indeed, we need to be more coordinated in our approach to fighting the issues of security, stemming these issues in the bud. Many thanks to Efe Wanaro, security analyst, and of course, Kabir Mohammed, security risk management expert. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
You're welcome, Justin. Thank you for having us.
All right. Thank you for staying with us. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, Nigerian voters might be stopped from challenging the certificate of candidate of elections, except they participated in the primaries. More in a moment. Stay with us.
The president 70% in the fight against corruption. You see, fighting corruption is not a tea party. It's a difficult task for anybody in any country of the world, no matter how powerful, no matter how developed the countries are. Corruption can be very tricky when it comes to avoiding the long arm of the law. And you also know that corruption crimes are not committed in the open. And that means that a lot of efforts will have to be put in place to trace the evidence of corruption.
I must tell you that originally and for some time, I've always believed in competency as opposed to zoning. In other words, let's look for somebody who is able to deliver the goods. But in
Welcome back. A new amendment to the Electoral Act has excluded the possibility of voters challenging credentials submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission by candidates. The proposed law, if signed by President Muhammad Buhari, will allow only those who participated in the party primaries to challenge in court the school certificate, the birth certificate, and other credentials of a co-contestant. Currently, all Nigerians are allowed to challenge the credentials of candidate of any political party. These have been reaffirmed by several court judgments. Now, joining us to discuss this is Jide Ologun, a legal practitioner, and Paul James, the program manager, elections, Yaga Africa. Many thanks, gentlemen, for joining us on this particular discuss this time around.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
All right, let me start with you, Barrister Jide Ologun. I need you to break this whole new amendment, as it were, to us, if you would, because if it is allowed to, see the light of day, Nigerians will seemingly not really have so much, say as it is in primaries and, of course, all the issues that they ordinarily would want to comment. Currently, Section 31, subsection 5 of the Electoral Act reads that any person who has reasonable grounds to believe that any information given by a candidate in the affidavit or any document submitted by that candidate is false may file a suit at the Federal High Court. So, exactly what do we have in our hands, Barrister Ologun?
An attempt to limit it to a candidate participating at the primary is trying to erode accountability, which is a crucial requirement in good leadership. And we may as well say that we don't even need anyone with credentials to come and contest for these offices. And we were even still talking about the introduction of the consensus candidate, then the retention of the indirect primary as a way of prompting candidates. Now we have this that is taking the local standard away from Nigerians who should be interested in those who come in to govern them. Because the risk here is that if you limit it to the party, then the party may just as well overlook some of the offenses. Recall that in 2019, the celebrated case of Bayelsa State, where Duyo Diri filed a suit against the governorship candidate of APC, who already was even, in the rehearsal for the inauguration into office. But the court disqualified him and the running mate because of a questionable school certificate, and it touches on integrity. If people with questionable school credentials get into office, what do you expect from them? And the Supreme Court agreed that the PDP should take over from the APC, despite the fact that the APC had already been declared winner by INEC. And then if we want people who are trusted to occupy offices, then we should not narrow it down. But having said that also, this may be an attempt in futility, because whether you like it or not, we still have the Freedom of Information Act. Whether you still have it, like it or not, we still have the perjury aspect of the law. So this serious crime should not be covered up by the National Assembly trying to masquerade. And it's really shameful, I must say, that the hallowed chambers that should be seen to be raising the bar of credibility, of competence, of accountability is coming up with a proposed amendment like this. It's really, it's worrisome. And some of us hope that they try to backtrack.
All right, then. Thanks for your opening salvo, Barrister Ologun. Let's bring Paul James into this discussion right now. You have been monitoring elections in Nigeria, and over time you've seen these issues of litigations that have crept up, because of certificate, who is qualified, pre-election matters, and all of that. So, if you were just to look at it on the face value, what does this, what would it really impact on the election processes in Nigeria going forward?
I think you have captured it rightly, because these are the fears that we have expressed, and also I like the opening comments by Barrister Jide. Our fear as civil society is especially because we have focused so much attention on other aspects of the bill that we didn't see when this one, when this one came to light until the conversation started a few days ago. And so we are even worried that perhaps there might be other obnoxious clauses on this bill that may impinge on the integrity of the electoral process. Don't forget, the conversation as of July last year was about electronic transmission. Early this year, the conversation was about mode of conducting primaries. And here we are again also about the right for candidates to appeal for, the right for people to appeal for the qualification of candidates in the election. Yes, I agree that we might see the rising cases of litigation, especially because people will, like Jude has said, people will definitely explore the possibility of the FOI bill, and INEC will be inundated with this request. So I think if we still have the window, the National Assembly should revise its step on this.
All right, let me stay with you, Paul James. So do you really think Nigerians maybe are in for bigger surprises since we don't really know the extent of this amendment to this new law?
Well, yeah, that is why we have been clamoring that this should have been passed into law earlier than now, because a lot of voter sensitization needs to happen in this regard. Besides, before you put this law into practice, you also need a lot of time to put a lot of things in place. This is just from the National Assembly. We also don't know what might happen if it gets to the president. That is also another fear that we, as civil society, we have been expressing. Yeah, I wish there would be more time to really scrutinize this bill, but then as it is better we have the bill than to have no bill at all, given the experience, the past experience. Whatever it is, I think going forward, then we can make any other appeal and see how we can revise it to status quo.
All right, let's get back to the barrister, Jide Ologun. You talked about, having the Freedom of Information Act. You also talked about the credibility of the National Assembly. And, right now they're seemingly, masquerading, themselves with this procurement or preclusion, as it were. Judging by the fact that the National Assembly, makes all of these laws, why would you think they would rather want to bring about such confusion in the polity, as it were, when they should ordinarily know better?
Maybe it's the absence of a deep understanding of purpose. If you look at Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that sets up the National Assembly, it says that assembly shall make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of Nigeria. So if we now begin to relegate the relevance of competence, intellectual competence, sound mind, and hands on the matter to the background, then what kind of governance are we going to deliver to people? And by extension, perhaps quite a number of them that are there are with questionable certificates. The likes of us who appreciate the purpose of education will never subscribe to such a provision. If you look at the Chinese profile on governance, the process of selecting Chinese government leadership is so sophisticated that the Americans envy them. So why should we come to the point where we now begin to operate as if we are a tout nation? But are we surprised when you look at the fact that right now bandits are almost taking over the country? We have a massive and disturbing profile of insecurity in the land, poverty in the land, and you begin to ask yourself, really, where is the mandate of the Constitution as enshrined in Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, that says that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government? So if they understand why they are in the National Assembly, they may not come up with proposals like this. But like I said earlier, maybe quite a number of them are within the bracket of those who cannot showcase their credentials. And of course, you don't try to cripple the law. You try to enhance the capacity of the law. And that is why some of us are concerned, and we're expressing that concern right now. But having said all this provision, even if passed into law, cannot remove my right to go to court to challenge anyone who has deceived us by presenting questionable credentials, and if you read Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, an act of the National Assembly, it says that the state shall abolish corruption and abuse of office. So when you put all this together, when we are now taking the local standard, the right of the citizens to challenge a crime, then what are we trying to say? So it's, I think they need to wake up in that National Assembly. I've said it. We have 109 senators, 360 House of Reps members expected to be representing Nigerians. But exactly who are they representing? Who are they representing?
So for just clarity, Barrister Ologo, so invariably, if this were allowed, to scale through, ordinarily to be a nullity, is that what you're saying?
Definitely, but you see, we are in a country that is unique. They have told the world that they have identified 400 sponsors of Boko Haram. Until now, no one has been named. No one has been brought for prosecution. And so how do you describe such a nation? You see, so, and that is why we keep praying that, something happens that puts us on the pedestal of good governance. We have the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations that will be, evaluated in year 2030. How much of those goals have we embraced? You can see how difficult it has been for our president to declare the bandits are terrorists. You can see the bloodshed across the nation. You can see the inflation rate. You can see the unemployment rate. You can see the fact that as we speak now, our total indebtedness as a nation is in the threshold of about 39 trillion naira. It was 12.12 trillion naira around March 2015. So, where exactly are we going? That's the point. Like I said earlier, the National Assembly has a mandate to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of Nigeria. And anything short of that, we amount to waste of resources and these times of great Nigerians by going to that hallowed chambers. They said they are there for themselves just to enjoy the goodies of office. But having said all this, they can either secure the future or mortgage the future. But proposed laws like this may end up mortgaging the future.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Barrister Ologo. Let's talk to Paul James. Paul, you raised some concern, and indeed I am also concerned, because as from what we hear today, the Senate has passed the harmonized version of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, what with the back and forth that we had with direct, indirect primaries, and of course the consensus, candidature and everything. So what do we really have right now? Because a whole lot of Nigerians are seemingly not well informed about this particular act as it is, and we are in the middle of an election year. So what exactly do we see happening when Nigerians are not so sensitized concerning these new changes that we have in our process of conducting elections in the country?
Well, I think we have something that has been happening in Nigeria, although not in a more recognized way. If you think about even some of the parties and the way they elected their leaders, PDP, for instance, just recently decided to sit for the party chairmanship to the North Central, and somehow they had an agreement that the chair of the party should come from a particular state. In some sense, that is a consensus. But then the fear is when people begin to get twisted, to begin to dance to the tunes of some powerful people in the party, and so it then remove the question of democracy. And so this is also because some persons have benefited from this in the past and they want to legalize the process. We had a party also in 2015 that elected their own candidate on the platform or on the basis of consensus. That is all agreeing to the consensus agreement. But then again, when you don't have all of the people dancing towards one direction, it becomes a problem. What you are trying to solve in one breath, you also open up wombs in another breath, meaning we might likely also see litigation where some persons where you don't have all members of a particular party, for instance, agreeing to how to go about the idea of a consensus. Now, the other modes of primaries, direct and indirect, a lot of questions have been raised, especially about one, internal party democracy, two, also about the party membership. Not all of these parties have updated records of their members. And so again, that opens up another problem, another challenge, because he who controls what is seemingly as the authentic register of the party gets to also control what happened at that level. So either way you see it, we still have this challenge. That is why voter education and sensitization needs to happen. I am not sure, I mean, we have the barrister on the court, perhaps he will provide clarity on this. I am not sure what the court may say about this. This is an agreement first at the National Assembly level. I also see the possibility that this could also open up wounds for litigation in the past, in the future, with people questioning how and the manner and how this party go about engaging in all of these processes.
All right, thank you so much. We must say a very big thank you to our guests this time around. A very big thank you to Jide Ologun, legal practitioner, and of course Paul James, programs manager elections, Yaga Africa. Thank you so much, and gentlemen, for your time. We do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
God bless Nigeria.
Yeah, God bless Nigeria indeed. Well, thank you for staying with us. Now we bring you a package where Nigerians expressed their opinion whether voters should be able to take candidates to court over their certificates or not. And after that, I'll be giving you my take.
Well, that's not democracy if you can't contest. I mean, there should be checks and balances. The masses should be able to hear their views about what is going on, with the electorate. This is not a German government. The electorate and the masses should be able to, work hand in hand and see what is best for the masses. That's just it.
We, the people, are the owners of the power. We own the power, in case they don't know. And if it means that we will have to march down to National Assembly to sack every single one of them, I will be part and parcel of that. So for the legislator to tell me that I cannot question anything he says, he doesn't know what he's saying, because the power was given to him by me, and I can recall him if I decide to. So, but all I would say is that they should not push Nigerians to the wall.
And the issue is that, there's maladministration of things in Nigeria. So the proper administration is not in place. So even if we challenge them, they have the monetary means to fight these things down. And they have the connection know-how to fight these things out. Okay, like for instance, maybe you are my godfather, and you want me to be there so that I can pay homage to you. You have your tentacles lined up in the way I'm going to get there, and before you know it, they will just stampede everything and put me there, and I'll be answering to him. I don't want to listen to people, because even if people had gone into the sun to stand for a whole day, because I can imagine how people suffer to stay in the sun and to vote their hearts or their right choice. But at the end of the day, the issue of godfatherism is not helping us. So even if we are trying to question them, trying to say their opinion that, okay, they hit the nail on the head of what we want them to represent us for, but still they're not going to budge.
And here is my take. The report of 486 people killed in Nigeria in 3 weeks leaves much to be desired. It is unacceptable. Government cannot just fold its arm and watch the people it has sworn to protect die each passing day. To think that in the first week of the year, President Muhammadu Buhari said the country is more secure. Alas, it is as though life has turned full circle on us. So I believe this is one area Nigerians must pressure the government, because we cannot continue to live in this very insecure environment. Don't forget that the security crisis
maritime. The Matter this week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there is regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, they go beat you. Now 2,500 they pay.
businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thoughts and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. I am Osayua Mesale.